Funny Comics Fan Club. Funny Comics Fan Club. Can you believe it?
Can you believe it?
Back again for the third time ever.
Issue number 3. No free gifts. I am one of your two co-hosts. I am Dr. Mark Hibbett.
And I must be the other one, not Dr. John Dredge.
Not a doctor. He's just not a doctor.
I've never been one ever.
And what are we looking at this week then, John?
Oh, I get a chance to introduce what we're looking at this week.
I think so.
Wow, look at that. Literally, look at that. Because we are looking at Whoopee comic from the 7th of January. That is quite significant. 1978. It's significant when it comes to the contents of this comic.
Oh, I see.
In no other ways it's significant.
Yeah.
It's 8p, so we can afford that, can't we now?
I think we can just about afford that, yeah.
Last week was 16p, that was right out of my price range.
We had to borrow that one, didn't we, from an archive, yeah.
Every Monday this came out. Every Monday, that's a bit weird, isn't it?
Well,
Monday? What's it doing coming out on a Monday?
It's weird, isn't it? Because all these comics always say every Wednesday or every Monday, and I thought, like, no, they come out on a Saturday, or sometimes on a Friday when my nan gets back from the shops. It's like, was there a separate delivery of comics every day to New? Because I suppose there were thousands of comics, weren't there? So maybe there was. Always confused me that.
Because Nutty was every Saturday, it said on the cover, every Saturday. And I was thinking, yeah, every Saturday I used to go to the newsagent and buy a comic. Maybe they were out various days during the week, and the only time I ever went to the newsagent was Saturday.
I've just had a glance over a sneak preview of next week's comic, and that's out every Thursday. So
weird, isn't it?
I don't understand.
They should all come out on Saturday so we know where we are.
That's right.
In 1978.
If Ed, from any of these publications, is listening, Ed.
He gets everywhere.
In Ed's voice, please let us know.
Yeah, Ed Itter.
So this was Whoopee. So I'm going to do a bit of facts now.
Whoopee comic.
Whoopee comic.
Yeah.
This lasted from 1974 to 1985, or 572 issues. It consumed Shiver and Shake. So Shiver and Shake was in 1974, and there are several characters from Shiver and Shake in this. Which brings us to the first one, really. I think maybe we'll talk about the first guy, Sweeny Toddler.
First of all, what a great name for a character.
What a brilliant name for a character.
No kid knows what Sweeney Todd is, though, do they?
No.
But it's a terrific name looking at it now as an adult. I would never have got that reference back then, but looking at it now, great.
I mean, maybe back then, because this is like over 40 years ago, so it was close to the time of Sweeney Todd, I suppose. But and there was less entertainment, so maybe we entertained ourselves with tales of murder back in those days. But he's a brilliant. Sweeney Todd is fantastic. Leo Baxendale invented him. I think it's Tom Patterson drawing him at this point. But the weird thing was, I always associate Sweeney Todd with Whoopee because he's such a Whoopee character. But it was actually in Shiver and Shake. And then when Whoopee amalgamated with Shiver and Shake, they had a vote to see which characters would go over. I can't remember who the other ones were, but Sweeny Toddler won. I mean,
I like there's a tiny little gag on the back page, because it starts on the front, goes onto the back. And one of these, there's a tiny little gag in here between panels. And there's a little strange monster who seems to have caught one of the readers and is about to eat him, as far as I can work out. See that?
So he says, I like fried eggs, but fried peg is better. Slurp.
Help. And that's peg.
There's a little arrow saying that's peg.
And that is a competition that a reader has won.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, there's a bit inside where it says if you want to contribute to the silly joke on the back page, then, write in.
But it's brilliant, isn't it? Because, there's lots of little bits in it. So there's a bit right on the front page where there's a mouse trap, which is a hammer with a bit of string on it to catch this very scared looking mouse. And it's just, the whole thing is just full of invention and fun. Already this is better than last time, isn't it?
This is 100 times better than last week.
Yes, it's just full of jokes and event and fun and excitement. I think what John was referring to about 7th of January being significant is that loads of stories in this take place at New Year's, don't they?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that Sweeny Toddler gets really, really excited. So basically, Sweeny Toddler gets really excited because it's New Year's Eve. He demands to be allowed into the New Year's Eve party. And then, as all kids who are ever allowed to stay up discovered, New Year's Eve is rubbish for a kid, isn't it? It's terrible.
For a kid, it's tedious.
Yeah.
I mean, for an adult, it's tedious, but a kid is getting all excited about it. The thing that I used to get excited about was what was on television as New Year sort of broke. I mean, Kenny Everett used to be on New Year's Eve. That's what I was interested in. The actual celebrations had no interest at all for me. And so, as you say, Sweeney Todd, he cuts his way through the upstairs bedroom and goes crashing down onto the sofa where all the adults are having a party. And he gets bored, so he goes out to a handy nearby farm.
Just a handy nearby farm that's nearby.
And
he unleashes a bunch of pigs.
He unleashes, as Mark says, a bunch of pigs. Yeah. It's really good. It's got a lot of energy to it.
Yeah.
You want to read it. It's crammed with different things happening. I mean, I've read this about 5 times now, and I didn't even notice that mousetrap joke.
No, it's the first time I've seen it. Hey. And I love. There's a brilliant bit on the back page where Tom Patterson, who's drawing, does the panels. So one panel is Sweeney upstairs in his bedroom, and the panel directly below it is the adults downstairs. And it's brilliant. The adults look so boring as they're coming in for the party. Yeah, it's a thing of joy and wonder, isn't it? It's absolutely.
And the colour's great, really colourful. Yeah, I thought this is more like what I remember a humour comic to be like.
It was, yeah. I'm just going to give it a sniff. Oh, it even smells good.
Roast beef.
Because I thought when I was reading this, it doesn't smell. Does it smell of roast beef?
Probably not.
It doesn't smell of roast beef. It's whole comics, John. I don't know about.
I'm sorry.
But the thing this reminded me of was fruit pastels.
What do you mean?
Because I got it, and I just had this feeling of fruit pastel, you know. Because I think with Whoopee, because I used to get Wizard and Chips, that was the main funny comic that I get. Wizard and Chips and the Beano. And so if you're getting Whoopee, it was like, this is a special extra luxury thing. So I associate this with the summer holidays when I go and stay with my nan and granddad's, and we go to the paper shop midweek and get an extra comic.
Oh, yeah, because this is why. I mean, I just saw these in doctors' and dentists' waiting rooms. That's when I read it, because I only had one comic a week, and that was crazy or cheeky later on. But I always remember thinking how good these were when I was in a doctor's waiting room, just waiting to go in. I just thought, this stuff is great.
Or on a rainy school lunchtime when they bring the comics out.
It's interesting that you mentioned fruit pastels, because they do a lolly now.
Oh, right.
And to me, that is like the epitome of a good childhood. Is having a fruit pastel flavoured lolly. I mean, to me, that sums the whole period up for some reason.
But it's really those sort of associations. But I think a luxury comic, and obviously I normally have polos because they're cheaper. But then you have fruit pastels and eco on. So
fruit pastels, they don't even have that hole in the middle, so there's more fruit pastels.
Yeah.
But also on the front cover is this thing. They're advertising this thing inside called the Whoopee Spotter Book of TV. Inside, part 1 of a super cutout.
That sounds super. Shall we get the middle pages?
Sounds super, doesn't it?
Sounds really exciting and fun. I bet that's full of all your TV favourites.
I can't wait to see what we can cut out this week. There's instructions here, how to put your spotter book together.
Oh, right, yeah.
Carefully cut out the first section of your booklet along the dotted line.
Okay, yes.
Are you paying attention, boys and girls?
Carefully cut it out, yes.
Next, fold along the line indicated. You will then have pages 1 and 2. 15 and 16. Keep them safe and collect parts 2, 3 and 4 as they appear. The Spotter Book of TV is for your own amusement. That's a matter of opinion, isn't it? I mean, what it is so you can cut this little booklet out. I mean, you know, all kids love booklets they can cut out.
And there was a series of these, because then Cheeky did one and Crazy. We know Crazy did one because I bought a copy of Crazy to do for this, but it had all this great big chunk of it cut out.
I would have loved to have seen that. But this one, the Whoopee Spotter Book of TV, it says, lots of things to keep an eye out for. See how quickly you can spot them. And then it's got a list of things you're meant to spot. How quickly can you spot a TV detector van? I mean, that's what it's got on here. You know, okay, a television rental shop.
Yes.
Yeah. Repair van, maybe. I mean, that is encouraging kids to smash their TV sets up.
But it actually says TV. Were there TV repair vans that said TV?
I guess so. But you're meant to sit there and wait to see them, and then as soon as you see it,
write it down,
and you're away for your own amusement.
My favourite one, the thing I was most excited on the other page. So so you can look at the TV companies, which I think, as we discussed before, is basically against people from the fens. It's like, where's Anglia on this?
Yeah.
So I can't believe it.
Just to explain for the tape, it lists a load of television companies that you're supposed to spot and tick. And so you've got a list of things like Granada Television, Yorkshire Television. So essentially, you're meant to sit watching TV until these things turn up on the television, and then tick it.
Yorkshire and Granada, fairly easy. Grampian?
Grampian. You have to go to Scotland.
But the best thing, I mean, the sheer thrill ride of excitement of this.
The happiness and joy that is about
wonderful.
On the 4th page of this spectacular cut-out booklet, something they've named Aerial View. Would you like to explain to the listeners what this is?
It's a series of pictures of television aerials.
That's television
aerials that you can spot. And my favourite, and the one I'm most excited to go and spot really, is the multi-element high gain aerial. Oh, can you imagine?
I've hardly ever seen one of those.
Well, you haven't lived.
I'm going to go, on my way home, I'm going to go and have a look for these. I mean, it's not the world's most exciting pull-out booklet.
It's not, is it?
It's nowhere near as good. I mean, this is obviously a rip-off of things like I Spy books.
Yes.
I Spy books were just brilliant. Most kids had one back in the day.
Yeah, we did.
It was things like I Spy at the zoo. Exciting stuff. You know, you go and spot a penguin. 10 points, well done. You don't go and spot an aerial.
Oh, you could do that, couldn't you?
And you don't get anything. You know, you fill it in. There's a sort of a half-hearted instruction in the comic which says, if you wish, challenge a pal who may also have a completed book, ambitious, to an observation test.
Right.
That sounds even more exciting than spotting the aerials. Each item has a square for you to tick when it's seen, and 2 boxes, one for you to write where it was seen, and the other for when it was seen. So the whole thing, very, very detailed in its tedium.
I would want a box that explained why it was seen.
Yeah.
That's what we need on this.
So the Whoopee Spot a Book of TV is not the highlight of this issue.
It is definitely not the highlight of this issue.
But there are loads of highlights. So
it's amazing.
We must remember that there are loads of highlights.
Well, let's go over right to the next page where there's amazing Supermum. I've completely forgotten about Supermum.
Me too. Totally forgotten about it. It's basically a mother who's looking after her kid Terry, but she's got super strength, and the interesting thing about it is she's not in any sort of superhero costume. She just looks like, you know, your average mum. You know, she doesn't solve any crimes, or she just defeat aliens or villains. She just it looks like an everyday story, but she uses these superpowers inadvertently a lot of the time.
Well, she's just really embarrassing, isn't she? I mean, I sort of think, like, if your mum, especially at this age, if your mum was super, like, oh God, Mum,
yeah.
And she does a bit where she shuts doors, where she wakes him up and shakes him to bits so he can't walk because she's so strong.
She's trying to wake him up for like New Year.
Yeah, it's New Year again. Yeah,
and she resolves to. He said to wake him up more carefully or more gently.
That's good.
But however hard she tries to be more gentle about it, her super strength means that she's always destroying things.
And I think there are 2 things I really love about. One I love about this is she's wearing a headscarf. Now, such a 70s mums in comics, from there, all mums wear headscarves. That's just the rule. I was always upset my mother didn't go around wearing a headscarf. And the second thing is, obviously, it's drawn by Dickie Howlett, who I think we all know from, he used to draw in Marvel Comics, these funny comic strips in there, didn't he?
I think it's Howitt.
Oh, is it Howlett? Well, there you go, Dickie Howlett, not Jamie Howlett's
brother,
mother, auntie,
father.
None of them.
That's interesting. So he's like quite well known in the Marvel sphere, is he?
In Marvel, I remember reading like the UK Marvel comics and like around this time, and he'd be drawing like little 3-panel gag strips.
That might be something to look at in the future.
But it's lovely, isn't it? It's so fun and dynamic and all sorts of things going on.
There's loads of fun sound effects all the way through it, like karumph, crack, shake. Just several sound effects that are welcome in the comic. It starts the whole thing off with a bang.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Or with a crack.
It's so much fun. I've just noticed it's got this thing at the top. So this seems to, there's a bit where it says, poor old Terry, he was quite alarmed when Mum insisted on waking him up in the mornings. Oh, he was quite alarmed?
Must be something to do with the alarm clock. I don't know.
Because that's such an old-fashioned comic, so you don't see that, especially in these sort of IPC ones. It's not a thing.
No.
They always used to have a bit over the top, didn't they?
What is it trying? It's trying to sum up what you're about to read in some way.
I have no idea what it's supposed to be. I mean,
maybe it's trying to make it more accessible for kids reading it, so they know what's going on, or it's more clear in some way.
Well, they could read the comic.
Yeah, they could do that.
Help, I suppose.
But like with old Rupert comics, they would have different. Like if you were a certain age, you would just read the bubbles. maybe if you were slightly older, you could also read the text below it. So there were different
levels,
levels of text for different ages. I don't know.
And they'd usually rhyme though, wouldn't they? It's like Rupert's day is ever so full. Rupert is incredibly dull. Or whatever.
Yeah.
But this doesn't rhyme. It's just a very weak. So I don't know what that said.
Doesn't rhyme or scam really.
But we'll let it off.
But it's a great character, and I certainly remember it.
I didn't remember Superman, I must say.
There was a super dad in, I think it might have been Wizard and Chips. He was more of a standard superhero character though.
Yeah.
I don't think he was married to Superman.
I don't think he was, no.
We're reading too much into it, I think.
But I think this is great. As a connoisseur of superhero comics, I love the fact that this is a gritty, realistic depiction of superhero life. This is a normal mum, just happens to have superhero. It's basically, a few years after that, we get Watchmen, and it's all ripping off Superman. So, John.
Yes, Mark?
I'm looking to find out what's going on in the 1978 football calendar. Can you recommend anything?
Well, your top soccer calendar for 1978 comes in full colour.
Oh.
Complete with a terrific photo of England's star striker, Trevor Francis. Heard of him?
I've heard of it. Isn't that him in action on the cover of this week's Tiger, which is out now?
Yeah, you can order your copy of next week's issue for the second half of this 12-month soccer souvenir.
Is that exclusive in Tiger?
Yeah, out now for just 8p. A tick for that one.
A big tick for that one. And then I think we go over a couple of pages to I love this. Scared Stiff Sam.
Yeah, it's really good.
This is brilliant. Scared Stiff Sam is a really big, muscly bloke who is terrified of everything, and apparently his mother, and he's sort of reading that his mother, I'm reading this like going, oh, this is quite fun. Why is he so scared of his mother?
I think he's scared of everything.
He is scared of everything.
He's scared of everything, and that's the sort of concept.
But in this, it's New Year's Eve again.
It's always New Year's Eve in this particular comic. Much more topical than I remember now, this sort of thing.
Well, I remember there'd always be a Christmas issue, and they'd have a bit of snow. You'd have to have a bit of snow over the logo, wouldn't you? I don't remember New Year's Eve.
No, not at all.
Who would care? But maybe it helps to have something to write a comic about.
It gives you an idea, and this is a really good one as well. There's loads of movement lines all over the place, and sound effects here and there. It's full of movement. Last week's comic, Nutty Comic, number 187, was really dull in compared to this. I mean, you've got some really cool, spectacular looking panels, haven't you?
Yeah, it's fabulous.
You've got one where a van is smashing into the side of a house.
And I should say, I did think, hang on a minute, is that a TV detective van?
I think it could be, maybe. Note it down in the book. Note it down, that saved a lot of time. Yeah, a really fun character. You know what it is straight away.
It's brilliant, isn't it? And weirdly, there's another character later on in the comic called Willy Worry, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah,
two scared stiff people in the same comic is a bit on the, it's over egg in the pudding a bit.
Maybe the editors were just they terrorised children and they thought that's how people's lives were. Yeah,
completely terrified Clive. How about that?
Right.
Really bothered Brian. But anyway, we like scared stuff.
I'm just going to be trying to think of new ones.
Yeah. If you've got any listeners, send them in.
Oh, send them in to us at our email address. I'm doing the same way, John. This is what's happening. If you would like to send us either a rhyme to describe this podcast, to put over the top of it,
clean ones only,
or indeed a ridiculous name of a character, please send it to dredgehibbett@gmail.com. That's DREDGEHIBBETT@gmail.com.
Moving through the comic, I feel like David Bellamy. Moving through the comic, we get to Toy Boy, but I just briefly wanted to mention it because he's got an emu puppet.
He's got an emu puppet.
He must have received that for Christmas, and I had an emu puppet.
I had an emu puppet.
You had one. They knew what they were doing in this comic.
When I was about 7 or 8 years old, my dad took us to see the emu live show in London.
My God.
Yeah.
Well, you don't remember where? Not the Palladium.
I've no idea.
What was it? What do you remember about it? Was it just him and emu, or was it loads of kids and things like that?
I remember too. Well, I had an emu puppet that was an off-brand emu puppet because other people had ones with all the tinsel on.
I didn't have that.
Did you have a nice sort of fluffy one?
I had a fluffy one.
Yeah, the fluffy one was nice. I love that emu puppet. And we had soup on the way home.
Lovely. But what about the actual show? Do you remember?
No idea.
Nothing about it.
No, all about the soup for me.
Ah, I would have loved to have seen Emu, because one of my favourite TV shows at the time was something called Emu's Broadcasting Company.
That was brilliant, wasn't it? Yeah.
If you get a chance to see it, it's on YouTube, it's still funny. But then he went into this awful period on ITV where he sort of introduced a bunch of Corona stage school kids, and it became really cringeworthy.
The Pink Windmill.
The Pink Windmill, yeah. Let's just talk no more of the Pink Windmill. But anyway, Toy Boy was great. Now we come to another fun character, Frankie Stein.
Frankie Stein, mate. Another character I associate with Whoopee, who actually started out in Core Comic.
Huh, did he?
And then went into Shiver and Shake.
I've got him first appearing in Wham.
Wham, sorry, yes, he was in Wham first. Oh, yes, you're right.
I've got Wham, then Shiver and Shake.
That's right.
Then Whoopee. Then he was the editor character in Monster Fun.
Yes.
That's where I think I might have first come across Frankie Stein. Drawn originally it's by Ken Reed, and the one we've got here I think is drawn by Robert Nixon. So what Frankie Stein was, he was a parody of Frankenstein's monster, but he was an innocent and lovable lunk who went around causing costly destruction to everything, and his creator or his father was constantly trying to get rid of him because he's always smashing into things and destroying everything. And this went on for years and years and years, this strip. It was very, very popular.
Because it's fantastic, isn't it? It's just it's genuinely funny. And I love the dialogue is so brilliant, because the way that Frankie talks is kind of like it's sort of Bernard Bresslaw-esque, isn't it? I think that's how you're thinking. But the interaction, and it's just these two characters in the strip, that it's basically steptoe and son for kids, isn't it?
Yeah.
Except the son is the one who wants to stay, and the dad's trying to get rid of him.
But you can understand it, even if you've never read any Frankie Stein before, you can still work out what's going on simply by reading this issue, which is something that didn't happen. In Nutty last week.
Gather round, listeners.
Gather round your tranny.
There's an important thing here in the field of comic studies, which is illustrated very interestingly by Frankie Stein. So there is a philosopher called Umberto Eco.
Okay. Yeah.
Who big shot philosopher.
Umberto Eco.
He wrote The Name of the Rose. That's what he's most.
They drink it in the Congo, don't they?
He is very much too orangey for crows. It's true.
So Umbongo Eco.
Umbongo Eco, yeah. And
what does he want? What's he got to do with it?
I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
I'm about to tell you. He read some comics once, and like all French philosophers, he basically spent 5 minutes reading something and thought he was the know-it-all of everything.
He wrote several books on this.
He wrote, yeah. I mean, they're all like this. All French philosophers, Foucault, all them guys, idiots in my opinion. But Umberto Eco had this thing called an Oneiric climate. And the Oneiric climate is when you live in a world where the past is very hazy, the future does not exist, all that exists is the now. And he was saying, so he looked at some old Superman comics and said there is no past, if only vaguely, there's no future, it's only now. So every Superman story starts, has no reference to the past, happens, ends, is never referred to again.
Oh, right.
Now, Umberto Eco was not correct in this.
He obviously hadn't read any Marvel comics.
He hadn't read any Marvel comics. This was in the 60s he was writing this. Oh. And he said, like, also the Marvel character, the Devil. And it's like going, no, Umberto, Daredevil is the name of the character, I think you'll find. And I think the thing is, the Oneiric climate does apply to Dennis the Menace, for instance. If you look at Dennis, so there's a comic that I was, in one of my academic papers, talking about where Dennis loses a tooth, and then the next issue is back.
That's what happens in Warner Brothers cartoons during the same cartoon. So, for example, we all know this. Wile E. Coyote would have his teeth smashed out, and the next frame they're all back.
Exactly, yeah.
But in Dennis the Menace, it would be the next week.
Exactly, yes. Okay. And so I know what you're thinking, John.
Do you?
I do. You're thinking,
sorry to hear that.
How was I ever lucky enough to be in a small, hot room with somebody who knows about Umbongo Eco?
I wasn't thinking that, actually, but...
why am I talking about this?
Why are you talking about that?
It's because in the Frankie Stein comic, at the start of it, his dad, Professor Cube...
Great name. What a brilliant name. All these words went into my brain somehow, and just stayed there.
It's amazing. He's saying, so much in 1977. I wonder how much cash that big lump Frankie cost me in breakages last year. And then he thinks through several past adventures that he and Frankie Stein have had. And looking at these, I'm sort of thinking, like, each one of these, so like there's one where he demolishes a building, there's one where he literally lets a bull loose in a china shop, there's one where he sinks a boat, and it's like, I thought, like, did these actually happen? Is he referring back to actual strips that have happened?
I think he is.
I think he is,
because the last one is so peculiar. He couldn't have just made it up for this strip. He says, to top that, we had to go all the way to Africa to get fresh man-eating plants for a friend after all his old ones started fighting about which of them was going to eat me. That concept is so strange, it must have come from a previous story.
It must have, yeah.
So I presume all these others were. So it's like a looking back at the year before, which is cool. It looks good.
It's really cool. And it's sort of introducing this continuity here. It's saying, like, this is a world, these characters exist in it, there's something going on. I think it's brilliant. It's a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful thing.
And it ends, it's a really good story, because Professor Cube has decided maybe to be kind to him, and because everything's been going wrong last year, it's all been costing him a fortune, and in the end Frankie admits he was going to leave home and get a job, but now he realises how much Professor Cube likes him, so he's going to stay for another year.
Because Professor Cube brings him a massive plate of sausages, doesn't he?
And a massive pile of Whoopee comics.
Oh yes, he does, doesn't he? Yeah. Which you'd think that Frankenstein would read and go, hang on, Dad,
hang on.
Horrible to me.
You think that'd be the first trip he went to? Maybe he's got very, very old Whoopee comics.
Could be.
But yeah, you can see why this guy was so popular, and I used to like Monster Fun as well, so that could be another one we could do in the future. Yeah. Monster Fun comic.
I never saw Monster Fun comic. I remember
really?
Didn't Monster merge with Buster? I think.
Probably might merge with something.
I remember seeing you say Buster and Monster Fun. I think that's right. And I thought, what's Monster Fun?
Oh, right.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I remember really liking that.
But this was great, wasn't it? This was really
good. We love that.
Which I think means I will then segue as we move through the comic, as you hear the gentle sound. Beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, look at all these fun characters. Maybe not.
Dads as lads.
Dads as lads. What do we think of dads as lads? What's the concept, first of all?
The concept, well, such that it is, the concept is there's two dads who've got two sons who look exactly like them. Well, I hope it is. I mean, it would be a bit weird if, like, it was the other way. Anyway, and they go,
You're thinking too much into it, you comic studies professor.
Do apologise. So the two dads are going, my two sons, what are you doing? And the son said, something very boring. And the dad says, do you remember we did something that boring? And they think, yes. And they remember, so what's happening? So...
Oh, it's not worth bothering about.
It's not worth bothering.
The concept isn't very good. The characters are a bit dull. I think this went on for ages and ages.
It went on forever and ever. This comic.
It's two fathers and their two sons, and they have lots of funny things happen to them, allegedly,
which they don't tell us about. They just show us the boring. Yeah. So basically, the lads are doing something. The dads remember when they did it. And when they did it, they really upset their fathers somehow.
Yeah.
So at the end they say, our boys don't do those things.
Yeah.
That's
it. It's not a particularly funny concept or anything. The one detail that I found really interesting was that the registration number of the car is DAL 13. Dads as lads 13.
Oh, that's quite a nice bit, isn't it? I like that.
That's the most interesting bit of the whole page, mind you.
That's when somebody's washing a car ineffectively, isn't it? That's kind of what happens in the story.
So Dads as lads, despite its long run, I think we could have done without it.
But the thing I found about it, I think it really sort of stood out for me, apart from being a bit dull where so much of this comic is so great, but also because the way it looks, so it's drawn by a bloke called Bill Mevin, and he used to draw for Polystyle, which is the great lost other comics company of the 70s, and they used to do like Pippin comic, and I think they did either TV Fun or TV comic.
Ooh,
and he
nice.
looks like it's kind of so the way he draws is a bit slicker than some of the. So on the other page from this is a comic called Claws, which is very mad and crazily drawn, isn't it? It looks like Ronald Surf's or Black Punch magazine sort of.
Yeah, it looks more anarchic and
it does, and
mad. And this looks a little bit more staid, shall we say?
We'll say that.
And we wish the cartoonist had stayed at home. But but moving on, I mean, look at this page. Worldwide Weirdies.
It's amazing, isn't it?
So it says at the top, we want you to take a weird look at anything in the world. Got any ideas? Send your sketch with a title and your name and address to Worldwide Weirdies at the Whoopee address. Each week we'll select an idea and make a finished drawing from it, and you'll be awarded £2. So Is this Ken Reid?
This is Ken Reid.
It is Ken Reid.
Yeah, and this came out. There was a book came out in the last couple of years, didn't it, of just these pages because it looks gorgeous, doesn't it? It's in full colour.
And it says the Barmy Bells, and it's a full size picture of a load of bells that look like monsters. And yeah, Ken Reid, actually, there's the signature.
Oh, he signed it, amazing.
How can one describe this artwork? It's awesome.
It's just full of excitement and stuff happening,
and energy, and really you can't look away.
For the sake of the tape, I should say we are both gazing at this one single image, and you sort of think you've just got to. I'm going to have to go out and buy this now, aren't I? Because it's so great.
The colours are springing out at you. A lot of energy to it, a lot of life, a lot of fun and excitement. That's what these comics were all about.
Yeah. And this comic as a whole, I mean, it's just full of. And there's a couple of duds in it, isn't there? There's like Willy Worries are great. Smiler is a child who smiles.
What else is there in this? You've got Lollipop. That wasn't particularly. Kids Court was an interesting one.
What on earth is going on in Kids Court?
I actually thought this was good. The concept of it is as an adult, it's a really good idea. Kids Court. Oh law, adults are for it. A court run by kids. Judge for yourself. The problem with that is, would a kid know what a court even is?
Well, I suppose it's based on Crown Court. That was on television in the afternoon.
So maybe kids might know what a court is, but I wonder whether I would have known at the age of 8 or 9 what a court is. But I think it's really well done. It's basically an adult is doing something to annoy a load of kids. They take him to court, and in the end, he has to serve them a load of food.
Serve them a slap-up feed.
A slap-up feed right at the end.
It's either the slipper or the slap-up feed, isn't it? That's the two extremes of life. I like the way that the first panel is like, here is a terrible thing happening. A child is bothered by bells. I just don't get a child being bothered by bells, but anyway. And then at the end of the first page, the adult is arrested, taken to kids' court, which he accepts as a legal institution. Yeah. There's no problem there.
Although he does say burble.
He does say burble.
Because he was smacked on the head by a truncheon in the previous panel.
Yeah.
I don't really understand what happens in it either. I remember thinking the concept is really funny for me as an adult.
Definitely.
Whether it would have been as interesting for me as a kid, I don't know, but I do like it.
I mean, the other concept that really confused me was what's it called? There's a bit where it's towards the back where it's
for the benefit of the tape, Mark is looking through the comic.
Looking through the comic. Oh, there we go.
Creepy car.
Creepy car. So, I mean, this is about a car that has died
and is now a ghost. It's a ghost car.
What? It's not.
That's quite a funny idea. A ghost car.
And then all these like ghosts. So there's a ghost Dracula and there's a ghost Scotsman, and they're all trying to get in the ghost car to go to the ghost shops.
I don't quite understand why Dracula gets in the ghost car, because he can fly anywhere. He says it's not as much bother to drive somewhere in the car than it is to turn into a bat. I mean, I can only take his word for that. But looking at the whole thing, I really liked it, as opposed to Nutty last week, which I think we did get a duff issue. You know, looking through Whoopee comic, it's full of energy, full of fun, full of silly ideas, and the Bumpkin Billionaires, one of the really famous characters, another of the really famous characters from Whoopee. It's full of famous characters.
Yes, it is, isn't it? You just remember them all, don't you? Think, them.
You don't remember why the Bumpkin Billionaires were constantly trying to get rid of all their money, do you?
Well, they won. I think they won some money right at the very start, and they didn't like it.
They didn't like what it did to their lifestyle?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
So, So
this is why they're trying to get rid of it.
They're trying to get rid of it.
Literally 4,000 episodes.
Yes. Mum in a headscarf, by the way.
Must have been the late 70s. Must have been the late 70s. But overall, I think, we really, really like this one. And I read this several times. Lots of variety in style, lots of silliness, and Sweeny Toddler on the front. Well done. Well done, Whoopee comic.
So what do you think are your favourite? What's 1 and 2? What are your favourites?
Oh, wow. 1, I suppose, would be Frankie Stein.
Yeah.
2, Sweeny Toddler. And the bit I didn't like was the Spotter Book of TV for reasons I've already discussed.
I think we're an absolute concert here, aren't we? Really? Yeah.
I think we're in agreement as to the feature we didn't like.
We didn't like. I mean, Down to the Lads wasn't very good.
It wasn't as very good, but it was nowhere near as bad as the spotted book of TV.
It's because you see, it's advertised on the thing. Look, it's a spotted book of TV. You think like, I love TV.
I can't wait to spot.
I can't wait to spot what's. I'm going to go. No, Mum, I've got to sit here and watch telly.
I've got to buy this comic because there's something to cut out.
Yeah, and then it's like, no, you can't spot things on telly. You've got to go outside and look at aerials.
You've got to go look at aerials and then find a TV detective ad.
Who only knows what was on the other pages? Could it have been plugs that you plugged in, maybe?
Nobody ever did anything with this spotted book of TV. I'm very interested in the crazy book of Spotter's book, though. I bet that was interesting. I mean, it must have been because they were cut out of the copy you had.
Exactly.
So I bet it was really good. But we're carping, aren't we? We really like Whoopee.
We loved it.
So Happy New Year, Mark.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And having you please now cut out coupon to send in, I will now present John with the next week's next fortnight's
next time's issue,
and that is the Beano.
The Beano, I've heard of this.
You've heard of it.
I look forward to looking at this in depth.
Finding out what the Beano is all about.
I'm looking forward to it immensely.
Yeah, so that's us. So thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
Don't forget to reserve a copy of the Funny Comics Fan Club with your newsagent. And I think we'll see you next time, won't we?
See you next time, guys.
Bye.